The TRC revealed that instances of torture and executions took place within ANC camps in exile. Many of the individuals targeted were victims of poor leadership, jealousy, and paranoia. Chris Hani himself faced a death sentence imposed by Umkhonto weSizwe's High Command in Tanzania for voicing the grievances of MK cadres. In the mid-1960s, recruits had raised concerns about the conditions in the camps and expressed a desire to fight. As a result, Hani was sentenced to death for allegedly plotting a mutiny, an order issued by Joe Modise and Joe Matthews of the MK High Command. Fortunately, African National Congress President Oliver Tambo intervened and stopped the execution. However, when questioned about this incident after 1994, Minister of Defense Joe Modise declined to comment. ANC guerrillas once collaborated with Zimbabwean freedom fighters, participating in the Wankie campaign of 1967. By 1980, however, many guerrillas, including those from the Luthuli, June 16, and Moncada detachments, refused to return to the camps in Angola. Others protested against the poor conditions they faced, arguing they should be allowed to fight instead. The ANC leadership interpreted this discontent as evidence of a spy ring attempting to usurp their authority, allegedly infiltrated by South African security operatives. Consequently, the security branch launched a witch hunt, during which numerous individuals were detained and tortured. At one point, nearly half of the residents at the organization's Cuba-Share camp in Angola were suspected of involvement in the alleged plot. The ANC's security apparatus had become significantly tougher since the return of cadres trained by the infamous East German Stasi in the post-1976 era. These individuals were referred to as Mbogoto, the grinding rock, or the penal beaters by those in exile. By early 1979, work commenced on a camp located 230 kilometers east of Luanda, which would become a site of terror for ANC cadres accused of espionage over the next decade. Known as the Maurice Abelo Rehabilitation Center, or Camp 32, it was more infamously referred to as Quadro. The camp's first commander was 19-year-old Mthunzi Gabriel Sizwe Mthembu, a Stasi-trained official. After 1994, he held a senior position at the National Intelligence Agency. Although he was willing to be interviewed in the 1990s, his superiors declined. During a Truth and Reconciliation Commission Section 29 hearing, Mthembu remarked, "It's difficult to describe the conditions we were exposed to. They were extreme, inhuman due to deprivation. Most of us were affected, and still are." He acknowledged the existence of serious indiscipline among detainees, stating, "We had comrades who abused their position, others committed serious offenses and fled without punishment, indicating we did not have a robust system for dealing with these issues." Atrocities committed in Quadro included pouring boiling water on detainees or dripping burning plastic on their skin. Others were confined in tiny cells, left in their own waste. While some detainees were genuine spies, others were punished for lesser offenses, such as smoking marijuana, stealing bananas from Angolan peasants, or merely for speaking out of turn. According to Mek Maharaj, there were individuals executed without any hearing, let alone a legal one. One of the victims was Ephraim Nkondo, brother of United Democratic Front activist Curtis Nkondo. In 1984, Ephraim was last seen being dragged through Quadro with a rope around his neck after he openly criticized the leadership, particularly targeting Joe Modise and Security Chief Mzwai Philiso. Timothy Khoitsile Serame, also known as Kenneth Mahamba, was ultimately executed due to a critical flaw in oversight. Born in Bekkersdal in 1952, he was the youngest of 6 brothers, followed by 2 sisters. His oldest brother, Joe, who later became the Chief Land Claims Commissioner post-1994, joined the ANC at a young age. He was arrested in 1962 and sent to Robben Island. Recalling that traumatic event, Serame's sister, Mabatu, stated, "I was in Standard 1 when they took him. The house was surrounded by police. It was frightening. Because of Joe, I don't think it would have occurred to Timothy to be a spy who used to hate cops. As a camp commander, Timothy Serame exhibited unconventional behavior. Andrew Masondo, the ANC's National Commissar in Angola, noted he didn't use drivers like other camp commanders and sometimes wrecked cars. A former Quadro inmate who preferred to remain anonymous describes Serame as unconventional and somewhat hippie-like. He was a very strict commander and was not popular with all his men, he added. In May 1997, the ANC reported to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that Serame had been implicated in the beating to death of an attempted escapee. However, an October submission only mentioned an alleged theft of weapons. In Section 29 hearings held in March and April 1998, Nidam Tunzi Mthembu, no Masondo, brought up the theft. In its October 1998 submission, the ANC claimed that prior to Serame's infiltration into the organization, he was instructed by the security police to maintain strict discipline, secrecy, and caution when gathering information. Remarkably, they stated he was advised to deny any involvement in political activities at home and to avoid revealing his family background to the ANC. This account raised skepticism among intelligence officers, both past and present, as well as former South African security branch members and a senior CIA operative. They found it hard to believe that Serame would have been directed to suppress information regarding his family's ANC ties. General Herman Stedler, the former head of Security Branch Intelligence, stated he was unaware of Serame. Someone like that would have been ideal for us. We would have encouraged him to discuss his background, he remarked. Had the ANC investigated Serame's history, they would have discovered that he was a brilliant student and a natural leader, yet he was expelled from 3 schools due to unruly behavior. He ultimately completed his education in Hammanskraal, contrary to ANC claims, which stated he graduated and was recruited in Mafikeng, 300 kilometers away. This was not the case. In 1976, Serame went into exile through Botswana, where he underwent training in the former Soviet Union and East Germany. He later became the camp commander of Cuba She, a transit camp housing about 200 cadres. His rapid rise continued as he succeeded Tamizulu as the commander of Pango, one of the most significant camps with an average of 400 to 500 cadres. During the protests in the camps in 1980 and 1981, ANC leadership was caught off guard. Having not convened a consultative conference since 1969, the new recruits were demanding another conference and the establishment of open elections. A paper titled A Miscarriage of Democracy, the ANC Security Department, published in the London-based journal Southlight, revealed that the leadership began to emphasize the existence of a spy network amidst growing paranoia and repression. Most of those detained were known critics of the leadership and branded as anti-authority. During the investigation, many were tied to trees and forced to spend the night there. In the Kamalundi camp in Malanje province, Oupa Moloi, who led the political department, tragically lost his life on the first day of his interrogation. Zulu, the camp commander, issued threats to kill more individuals considered culpable, many of whom were left bloated and in severe pain as they stood lined up before the detachment. As a test, Masondo brought an ambulance to Serame's camp and forbade him from driving it. Ignoring the order, Serame drove the ambulance and was involved in an accident. Subsequently, he was summoned to Quadro, where his weapons were confiscated by Mthembu, who accused him of being implicated as a spy by a cadre whom Serame had allegedly assaulted, also accusing him of espionage. Gordon Moshoeu, who was also accused in the 1981 plot, and William Mushotana, a South African National Defence Force major post-1994, were taken to Serame's cell and confronted with him. This was a technique to force confessions once cadres had seen the conditions of their comrades. Moshoeu said Serame was unrecognizable. We could only recognize him by his voice. Moshoeu denied the existence of a spy ring. A resentful Mushotana refused to be interviewed, without an assurance from either Modise or his deputy, Ronnie Castros, that he would not be victimized. Both declined repeated requests to give this assurance. The NC's official roll of deaths in exile states Serame was executed in 1981, but Mthembu says 1982. He was taken into a ravine behind Quattro and shot at the behest of Masondo on the recommendation of Mthembu. His crimes: driving cars badly, going out drinking, beating up cadres, and speaking his mind. The case of Joel Mahlatini provides a good example of the manner in which paranoia had taken over the NC leadership. Mahlatini was severely beaten on the orders of his camp commander, Kenneth Mahamba, after being accused of being a spy. He was dead on arrival at Camp 32. Joe Serame only found out about the fate of his brother in 1998 when he asked the NC two simple questions. Why was Timothy executed? Will the NC facilitate the return of my brother's bones? Receiving no response, he approached the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Commissioners and researchers admit his request caused anxiety and division. An investigator recalled, no one wanted to take on the NC. The NC initiated 4 commissions of inquiry into abuses in camps, but has not spoken openly about torture and abuses in its camps. The NC was a signatory to the Geneva Convention, which specifically excluded the torture and execution of prisoners. In December 1998, the SABC's Issue of Faith screened a documentary on the quest of Joe Serame. During the making of the film, requests for interviews with Mthembu were turned down by his superior, Joe Nhlanhla, even though Mthembu was willing to speak. Joe Modise, Ronnie Castros, and the Reverend Frank Chikane all turned down interview requests. The offices of President Nelson Mandela and Deputy President Thabo Mbeki failed to respond. Joe Serame experienced pressure at work from cabinet ministers and colleagues. He told the Truth and Reconciliation Commission it would be blood money if he put his job before his family. Mail disappeared from filmmaker Kevin Harris's postbox, telephones were tapped, and hackers destroyed files in Harrison's computer in an attempt to stop the production of the documentary. A former Quadro inmate said, "Even today we live in fear. Since 1980, 57 Bokoto have been assassinated and 7 former Quadro inmates. Who is killing them? We believe they are being killed because of what they know about those who are in power now." Quadro left a dark shadow that has not retreated.